Let me tell you a version of plagiarism nobody warns you about. Not the obvious copy-paste, the one that happens when you think you did everything right and you still get flagged. In the next few minutes, I'll give you the clearest framework you will ever need. What plagiarism actually is, the forms that smart students still miss, why similarity scores are misunderstood, and the exact workflow you have to use to fix the risk before submission. Okay, quick test. Plagiarism or not? I'm giving you 3 scenarios or 3 situations. You decide whether it is plagiarism or not. The first scenario is that you copy a sentence word for word. You add a citation, but you don't use quotation marks. Yes, this is obviously plagiarism. Citation doesn't replace quotation marks if you copy word for word. Second, you change a few words, but you keep the same structure and phrasing, and you cite the source. Oftentimes, yes, that's a version of plagiarism called patch writing. Third scenario, reuse a paragraph from your own previous assignment in a new course and you don't tell anyone. That can be self-plagiarism under many academic policies. If any of those surprise you, that's good. This is exactly where people lose marks even without realizing. So this is for anyone writing academic work, term papers, thesis chapters, dissertation, conference abstract, and journal manuscript. And here's the anchor idea. A similarity score is text overlap, not a verdict. The report is just a tool and you are still the judge. So what is plagiarism really? What does plagiarism mean? In academic and research setting, plagiarism is presenting someone else's words, ideas, data, images, or methods as your own without proper acknowledgement. And it's not limited to published text. It can also involve taking ideas or methods from privileged access like peer review, internal documents, lab materials, or drafts you weren't supposed to reuse. Here is the simplest mental model. If a reader would believe it came from you, but it actually came from someone else, you must make that visible. Now, the 4 forms of plagiarism people usually miss, and I'll make these painfully clear. The first one is obvious, direct plagiarism. So direct plagiarism is copying wording word for word without quotation marks and proper citation. If the words are theirs and you use the exact words, you quote them. The second is patch writing. This is often the #1 trap for graduate students and early researchers. So patch writing is when you paraphrase by swapping a few words, but the sentence structure and phrasing stay basically the same. Here's a quick example. Let's suppose the original source sentence reads like this: chronic sleep deprivation impairs attention and increases the risk of academic underperformance. Now, let's compare that to a patch written version, which is often risky even with citation. A patch written version would go like this: long-term sleep deprivation harms attention and raises the risk of poor academic performance. Do you see it? Same structure, same logic, same key phrases, just synonyms. A proper paraphrase changes the structure and the way the idea is expressed while keeping the meaning and adding the citation. For example, a proper paraphrased sentence will go like this: when students consistently sleep too little, the ability to focus drops, which can translate into worse results in school. That's the difference. Not word swaps, a rebuilt sentence. And yes, even if you cite the source, if your wording is still too close and you didn't quote it, it can still be termed as plagiarism. Third is self-plagiarism. Self-plagiarism is simply reusing your own previous work and presenting it as new without disclosure or permission. Students do this by recycling an old assignment. Researchers often do this by recycling published text. Different context, same integrity problem. The reader is being led to believe it's new when it isn't. The fourth way of plagiarism is source laundering. Source laundering is when you take an idea or wording from a secondary source, but you cite only the original paper you never actually read. That's not scholarship. That's not the proper way to do it. That's outsourcing your credibility. If you didn't read the original, cite what you actually used and then trace the primary source properly. Now, why is plagiarism a career risk? Why does it matter? Because integrity policies have real consequences. Failing grades, transcript notes, suspension, even expulsion. There are several institutions that plagiarism carries more severe consequences than even getting a failed score in your grades. And for researchers, the consequences can include formal findings, supervision requirements, restrictions, and long-term damage to credibility. Even when the intent wasn't malicious, the outcome can still be serious. So prevention is everything. Now, here's a workflow I recommend for any academic paper or any term paper. Strategy number 1, write with source notes open, but separate evidence from your claim. The mistake is really not reading. The mistake is mixing the paper's language with your argument in the same space. So for example, when I take notes, I use 3 labels. The first label is evidence, what the source actually found. The second label is interpretation. What does that mean? The third label is my claim, how I'm using it in my own paper. So for example, this is from a source. So let's say evidence. The evidence says in a cohort of 1,000 adults, higher baseline C-reactive protein was associated with incident cardiovascular events over 5 years after adjusting for age, sex, and smoking. The interpretation I write is that inflammation marker predicts large later events. Association persists after key confounders. The claim here is that I will use as a support for inflammation is a prognostic indicator. Then contrast it with other studies that finds weaker association. See what this does? You are not collecting sentences. You are collecting facts, meaning, and purpose. That boundary is what prevents accidental copying. The second strategy is that if you paste text for reference, label it so aggressively you can't miss. Don't leave copy text unlabeled. It's true, but you need a system that survives stress and deadlines. Use an ugly, unmistakable tag like pasted verbatim, must quote or delete. An example will look like this in your draft. You have a sentence that states that participants with diabetes were excluded because hyperglycemia alters endothelial function and may confound vascular outcomes. Then you have to write into bracket pasted verbatim, must quote or delete. Now you cannot forget that line is borrowed. Later, you either convert it into a proper quote or delete it and write your own sentence or rewrite it from your own understanding. That is often the best way. This one tag prevents the classic disaster, a copied sentence that survives into your final submission. The third strategy here is cite as you go with a citation anchor, not I'll add it later. People don't usually forget to cite because they are dishonest. They forget because later they can't remember which part came from where. So instead of I'll add citations later, you add a citation anchor the moment you type the claim. Use a quick placeholder format that's impossible to miss. An example in a paragraph draft with anchors will look like this. Inflammatory markers have been proposed as prognostic indicators for cardiovascular risk. Into bracket, your citation anchor, let's say Chan 20 or Chen 2019. Even if your reference manager isn't open, the anchor prevents attribution and lets you fix formatting later without losing the source. Strategy number 4 is paraphrase only after understanding. And here's the difference between bad and a good paraphrase. Most people paraphrase by swapping words while keeping the same skeleton. Remember, that's patch writing. For example, let's say the original text reads like this. A regular exercise improves mood and reduces stress in university students. If you write it in a similar way like consistent exercise enhances mood and lowers stress among college students, that is patch writing because it's the same structure, same phrasing, just synonyms. The proper and safe way to paraphrase such a sentence would be like studies on university populations suggest physical activity is linked to better mental well-being and less perceived stress. Then into bracket the author and the year. The rule that makes this easy is that read it once, look away, explain it in your own words, then cite. Now, the fifth strategy is what I called running a similarity check when your draft is stable. Now, there are a number of tools you can use to get a similarity score or plagiarism check. Turnitin is a common and well-known tool that many institutions use. A well-known platform that I've also tested with similarity functionality is paperpal's plagiarism check. So paperpal is an all-in-one academic tool used for academic writing. And one feature I find very useful is their plagiarism checker. You upload your draft and it generates an overall similarity score. Now let's fix the biggest misunderstanding when it comes to similarity tools. Similarity tools only highlight matching text. They do not decide on plagiarism. A similarity percentage is just the proportion of your text that overlaps with other sources. And here's the part that should calm you down. Some overlap is actually normal. References will tend to match, article titles will match, standard phrases in methods will match, definitions and technical terms would often match. So don't chase a magic number. A perfectly low score is not the goal. Chase clarity, what is matched, why is matched, and whether you use it legitimately. My rule is simple. Don't chase the percentage score or percentage similarity score. Always chase the risk. So how do you read a similarity score report? Here's a 3-layer method to read a similarity score report. Layer 1, ignore the percentage for a moment. Find where the matches are. Layer 2, look for how big the matches are. Large blocks from one source are higher risk than scattered short phrases. Layer 3, classify the overlap, legitimate or risky. Legitimate overlap can include references, properly quoted text, and standard methods language. Risky overlap is what you fix: missing citations, close paraphrases, and repeated wording that should be quoted or rewritten. Now, how do you fix flag text in your similarity score? When something is flagged, you have 3 moves. Move number 1, you cite. If it's an idea without attribution, add the missing citation. Number 2, quote. If the exact wording matters, use quotation marks and cite properly. Number 3, rewrite. If it's meant to be a paraphrase, rebuild it, new structure, new phrasing, same meaning, and cite the source. Here's the best paraphrasing rule I can give you. Read the source, look away, explain it like you're teaching someone, then cite. That's the point of the check. Not panic. Review, correct, and submit with confidence. Our 6th strategy is review every flag section and decide. Cite, quote, or rewrite. Cite, quote, rewrite. Those are your only moves. If you made it this far, congratulations. Let's close with this. Integrity isn't a percentage, it's a process. The goal is not a low similarity score. The goal is honest scholarship that can stand up to scrutiny. And if you're using any AI tool, for example, paperpal or any similarity tool, use it as a mirror, not a shortcut. Until next time, bye-bye.